Hey guys, welcome back to Release the Craftin, and welcome back to the second episode of... I make goddess jewelry, and I tell you a little bit about the goddess. I still don't have a name for this. I'm playing catch-up, so I can get back on track for the year, because I decided to do this a couple months into the year. So here we are, with the January box, and I'm making another piece of Aphrodite jewelry, since I already did that the first time. We're doing it again. So I'm going to kind of speed run Aphrodite a little bit, because this video is not that long, and because I feel like a lot of us are very familiar with Aphrodite. If you are not, Aphrodite is the ancient Greek goddess associated with love and beauty. This is going to be very not safe for work, so put your earphones in. She's also associated with lust, sex, procreation, basically, if you can associate it with love in some way, shape, or form, that's what she's got going on. She is the goddess of fertility, and lots of other things. It's very interesting, and I'm not going to go into a deep dive on every Greek goddess I do, but for her Roman counterpart as Venus, her role doesn't actually change that much, and sometimes some of the goddesses get really neutered when they go to Rome in their interpretations of their aspects, but for Aphrodite, it stayed pretty much the same. They just said, goddess of love, beauty, and sex, but make it demure. That's essentially what happened when her worship got brought over to Rome. She is actually a little bit older than some of the gods. Surprisingly, her origin does not come directly from the line of Titans. It comes from what came before the Titans, which I don't know what they were called before. They're sort of the elemental forces that make up the entirety of the universe. You have the void, that chaos, like where everything sprung from. You have Gaia, who makes up the earth, and you have Uranus, who makes up the sky. And what happened was Kronos, who happens to be Zeus's father, when he got tired of his dad's bullshit, he decided that he was going to overthrow his father, Uranus, the god of the sky, by using a scythe to cut off his genitals. And when they removed his genitals, he threw them into the sea. Now, that's not the only thing he cut up. He cut the rest of them up and left them up there in the sky to do sky stuff. But he took his genitals, threw them in the sea, and from the sea foam that emerged from this stuff, interpret that how you will, arose Aphrodite. No mother, no father. She just came forth from the foamy sea. And she actually emerged onto the coast of Cythera, and everyone just knew immediately she was a goddess. And at some point, Zeus decided that they needed to sort of get a handle on Aphrodite, because she didn't have a point of origin, and she is a little bit older than him in the sort of scheme of things. So he ended up just sort of low-key, like, adopting her and being like, this is, like, my daughter by proxy, so that she had sort of a parentage, and he could sort of take, like, ownership over what was happening. And that's all because the gods were fighting over her. She was so beautiful and so stunning that when the gods laid their eyes on her, they were like, they all wanted her. And so Zeus was like, okay, I gotta mediate this somehow. So I'm gonna be her dad, and then I'm gonna tell you guys what my daughter does. And that's how he became in charge of Aphrodite, and how she sort of came into the Olympians. There's a lot to say that Aphrodite has her origins in actually far older deities. She's one of the few deities in Greek mythology that you can trace back to ancient Sumeria, all the way back to Ishtar, who is an East Semitic goddess, and farther back to that, to the Sumerian cult for the worship of Inanna. They'll have a lot of the same traits and the same associations, and it's actually very interesting if you wanted to do a deep dive into Aphrodite to go check out her roots, because she comes from this very long line of sex, love, and fertility goddesses. And a lot of gods actually find their roots in older gods in ancient Greece. So it's very interesting. It's very, very fascinating. I don't have time to talk about it today. But I will say, and I thought this was interesting, is that she was considered to be the goddess of prostitutes, which led to this belief that there was the concept of sacred prostitution in ancient Greek times, and that's not true. That's not a thing. But it is true in ancient Sumerian times, as well as the time of Ishtar, that sacred prostitution was a thing. So I think that's where that belief sort of comes from, and I just think that's a very interesting parallel. Aphrodite is in a lot of different Greek myths. Mostly asking people if they think she's pretty and then spurning them when they say no, or ruining their lives if they say no, or blessing them if they say yes. She tends to be very generous as a goddess in a lot of her stories. If you are a faithful worshiper of her, she is very, very positive to you. If you dismiss her in any sort of way, maybe by declaring yourself not wanting to marry, she takes that as a personal slight. So she's a little bit temperamental as a goddess goes. A lot of them were, so we're not gonna like frown at her too much for that. But yeah, her stories kind of go all over the place. Now, in actuality, she ends up getting married to Hephaestus. In a very long story short kind of way, Zeus sort of has a competition for her hand, and he ends up being the most impressed with what Hephaestus does, so he grants her to Hephaestus to be his wife. And Hephaestus is the god of the forge. He's also known to be slightly disfigured from when his mother threw him off of Olympus, and so it's sort of a like Beauty and the Beast situation, because everyone's like, oh, they stuck the most beautiful goddess with the god that people generally consider to be the ugliest. But as far as gods go, I think we can say it's safe to say that Hephaestus is still pretty good looking. He's just not like cover girl good looking. You know what I mean? So she's married to Hephaestus, but she persists on being unfaithful to him. All the time, every time. And in fact, she has a long-standing situationship with the god of war, Ares, which is actually a really interesting dynamic. Love and war going kind of hand in hand, and them always being on again, off again. It's a very interesting parallel to how we sort of view that situation in real life, and it's very fitting. She actually has several children by Ares. And it said that she has a couple children with Hephaestus. She also has a couple children with other people. She takes a lot of lovers. But like I said, this has to be a very quick run, so I have to get out of here. I will tell you that her symbols are roses, seashells, pearls, the anemone flower, and as well as the narcissus flower. She also is fond of dolphins, doves, swans. Any animal that mates for life is an animal that's sacred to Aphrodite, so something you could work with. And I will, of course, link something in the description box below for you guys to follow up on if you want some more information on the goddess Aphrodite. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I appreciate your faces, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Until then, happy crafting! Bye!